right? So Java itself is platform dependent because it has multiple installers for multiple operating systems. But after installing this installer, whatever the code that you write, or develop, that code is platform independent. How it became platform independent, we'll discuss in the later classes. We'll discuss in the upcoming classes. So now do remember that Java itself is platform dependent, but the code whatever once the Java is installed, and the code what we develop, that is platform independent. Okay. So if you install Java, you get a compiler and you get a interpreter. You get a compiler and you get a interpreter. Okay. So when you install Java, so what you get is you get a compiler, and you get a interpreter. Right? So we should understand what is the job of a compiler, what is the job of a compiler, and what is the job of an interpreter. What is the job of a compiler and what is the job of interpreter? Okay. So so before we talk about these two the compiler and interpreter, we should talk about two terms in Java. There are two terms in Java. There are two terms in Java which we should understand the meaning of them. What are them is recommendations. There are recommendations, and another is conventions. Okay. Before we talk about compilers and interpreter, we should know what is a recommendation, what is a convention. So recommendations are like suggestions. Recommendations means suggestions. Okay. So for example, this is like, okay, if you drive a bike, or if you go on roads, you see a safety measure, right? A safety measure, a board you can see which says maintain the speed of 30 or maintain the speed of 40. It's a suggestion given by the RTO department. It's up to you to follow the recommendation or not. Okay, if you follow that, something good will happen. If you don't follow that, something disaster will happen, right? So you see that, okay, wear seat belt, something they say, which is a suggestion, right? So it is recommended to wear a seat belt or a helmet while driving a bike or driving a car. Okay, that's a suggestion given by the RTO or traffic departments. Okay, it is up to you to follow it or not. Okay, it is up to you to follow it or not. Okay, these are like suggestions that are given by the programming language. But when it comes to the conventions, these are rules. You must have to follow. Example, when you reach a traffic signal, when the light is red, you have to stop. If you don't do that, what happens? You get a fine, right? We get fined. Or sometimes if this gets exceeded, your license gets cancelled. Right? This is a rule which you must have to follow. So in Java, there are recommendations and conventions. So recommendations are like suggestions given by the Java programming. So it is up to you to follow that or not. So I recommend you to follow the suggestions given by the programming language. But conventions are like the rules of the programming language. They are the rules of the programming language you must have to follow. follow. Okay, so now when it comes to the compiler, what is the duty of a compiler is, okay, compiler will verify the syntax of your program. Syntax is like the structure of your program, syntax of a program. Syntax is like the structure, whether you have everything arranged in a proper order or not. Everything you have arranged in a proper order or not. Okay, fine. Syntax is validated. Then, okay, after syntax, then it will validate the grammatical mistakes, grammar mistakes. It will validate the grammar mistakes. Basically, when you are writing something, it is not like English grammar. It is not English grammar. We'll understand what are the grammatical mistakes, how it will identify. Okay, so then it will identify the grammatical mistakes in your code. Okay, how it identifies the grammatical mistake, we will see that. Okay, so it will identify the grammatical mistakes. Third is, okay, it will validate all the conventions. It will validate all the conventions. Conventions are rules. All the rules of the programming language will be validated. Okay, if everything is validated, okay, if all this is done, suggestions it won't, okay, it won't care of. Suggestions are up to the developer. Suggestions are up to the developer whether he can follow them or he may not follow them. Okay, if you don't follow, compiler will give a warning. Compiler will give a warning. That's it. It is better to use this. It is better to use this, but we recommend you to use this. That's up to you whether you use it or not. Okay, if you don't follow the suggestions, you get the warnings, only that, but your program will run. Okay, the duty of a compiler is to validate the syntax of a program, validate the grammatical mistakes, and validate all the rules of your program, all the conventions of the program, all the conventions of the program. Fine, if everything is properly done, in your program, right, everything you have done properly in your program, then the compiler will read your code. The compiler will read your code, and compiler, after reading the code, it will not directly convert to a machine language. It will convert to some intermediate. It will convert to some intermediate. It will generate one intermediate file, basically. So once your syntax is generated, once your syntax is validated, once your grammar is validated, all the conventions are validated in your program, then it will generate one intermediate file called as, okay, dot class file. It will generate a dot class file. This file is called as binary file. This file is called as a binary file. So the binary file, basically whatever the code you write, that is called as a source code. That is called as a source code. Okay, your compiler will read the source code. It will read the source code. It will validate the syntax of your source code. It will validate the grammatical mistakes in your source code and all the rules of the programming language. And if everything is fine, then your source code is converted to a dot class file, which is called as a binary file. Binary file. This binary file is called as bytecode. This is called as bytecode. Okay, so this bytecode, humans cannot read it. Humans can't read it. No other programming can read this file. This is some kind of an encrypted file, you can think. Okay, which your machine can, which your interpreter can understand, but not by the humans. Okay, so your compiler will validate the program syntax, will validate the grammatical mistakes, it will validate all the rules. After doing that, your source code is compiled and it will be generated as a dot class file. This dot class file is called as a binary file or bytecode. So which humans cannot read this. read this. So this bytecode or this dot class file, what is generated by the compiler, you can take it to any platform. You can take it to any platform, any OS, any platform or any OS, any architecture of the CPU, it will get executed because of this intermediate, okay, intermediate file. Because of this intermediate file or because of this bytecode, Java has become platform independent. Platform independent. Your compiler will read the source code, it will validate all these rules, and then it generates one dot class file which is called as a bytecode or a binary file, which humans cannot read it. Only the interpreter can read it and understand it. And this binary file, if you take it to any other system where Java is installed, where Java is installed, that interpreter knows what is the meaning of this file. Okay, so this binary file is an intermediate file which humans cannot read it, where the interpreters can read it, where the interpreters can read it. So interpreters will read this binary code line by line. They'll read the code line by line, and it will understand, and it will convert these instructions as per the architecture of the as per the architecture of architecture of your machine CPU, architecture of your CPU, whether it is 32-bit system or 64-bit system, or it's a ARM system, or it's a i5, right? If it's an Intel processor, if it's a Xenon processor, as per that processor, the instructions will be converted by your interpreter. It will be converted by your interpreter. Okay, so that's the duty of your compiler and interpreter. When you install Java, you get a compiler and you get a interpreter. Okay, so if you want to develop the code, if you want to develop the code, you need a toolkit, right? You need a toolkit. So basically, if you are building something, you're preparing a toy. Okay, you're preparing a toy. You need some items, right, to prepare the toy, right? If it's a paper, you need a scissor, you need paper, right? You need some tools to prepare it, right? If you want to write the code, similarly, you need a toolkit that is called JDK. That is called JDK. So this compiler and interpreter are packaged in this JDK. Are packaged in this JDK. So JDK stands for Java Development Kit. Java Development Kit. Okay. So JDK stands for Java Development Kit, where you get a compiler and an interpreter inside it. You get a compiler and interpreter inside it. There is one more thing called JRE. There is one more thing called JRE, which is called Java Runtime Environment. Java Runtime Environment. So which means in JDK, you get a compiler and interpreter. Both you will get. So if you want to develop the code, if you want to develop the code, and if you want to develop the code, if you have a compiler, that is enough. If you have a compiler, that is enough. But if you want to run your code, you need the interpreter. If you want to run your code, you need interpreter. In JRE, you will only get interpreter. You'll only get interpreter. It's a runtime environment. It creates a runtime for your program. Runtime is execution mode, execution of your program. So in Java Development Kit, you get a compiler and interpreter. In Java Runtime environment, you get only the interpreter. Only the interpreter. Here comes the question. If I want to develop the Java code, if I want to develop the Java code, what is that I need? I need JDK. I need JDK. Okay. If I want to run, I don't want to develop. If I want to run my code, if I want to run my code, I don't want to develop the code. Now I want to run my code, execute my program. Running is nothing but executing the code. Executing the code. Now what I need? I don't need a JDK. If I have a JRE, if I just have an interpreter, if I just have an interpreter, that would be enough. That would be enough. So you can download the JDK, which is a full set, a complete set, or you can just download the JRE from the official sites. Okay, based on your requirement. If you are developing the code, then go for JDK. If you don't want to develop the code, if you just want to run the code, then go for JRE. Then go for JRE. If you just want to execute your code, then go for JRE. But if you install JDK, you will get both. You will get both. So so that's about the Java compiler and Java interpreter. Java interpreter. So someone has asked yesterday, okay, what is someone has asked yesterday what is JIT, when this JIT will come, right? JIT stands for just in time interpreter. There are two type of interpreters. One is AOT, interpreter, which is called ahead of time interpreter. Okay, there are two type of interpreters. One is ahead of time and another is JIT interpreter. Okay, so JIT interpreter will not be just in the Java. Other programming languages also will use just in time interpreters. So there are ahead of time interpreter and JIT interpreters, both are there. So Java will use both of them. So Java has ahead of time interpreter, which is called JRE, and Java has JIT just in time interpreter. So the just in time interpreter, what it does is it will identify the hotspots in the code. It will identify hotspots in the code. What is a hotspot in the code? What do you mean by a hotspot in the code? Hotspots are like repetitive tasks. They are like repetitive tasks. If you have a repetitive task, okay, which are available in your code, okay, like counting a number, counting a number from 1 to 10 lakhs, 1 to 10 lakhs. So which is a time taking process. So here, if what happens is, if we try to count the numbers 1 to 1 lakh, normally it takes time for us. So these repetitive tasks, like counting the numbers, is a repetitive task, right? Counting the number of rotations that your machine takes, CPU cycles it takes, how many CPU cycles your fan takes, your AC takes, for example. How many cycles? RPMs. Basically, I'm talking about cycles, means how many RPMs, rotations per minute, your fan takes. So which is like a repetitive task, So this is a time consuming process. So your Java interpreter identifies that these hotspots in the code, the repetitive task, which is a time taking process in the code, and this will be handled out to just in time interpreters. Okay, just in time interpreters. Okay, so now this just in time interpreters, what it does is it will quickly execute that. So it knows that these interpreters will execute the code in a fraction of seconds, because of this just in time interpreter. Okay, because of this just in time interpreter, Java is fast. Java will execute the programs in a fast manner. Java is fast. Okay, this will reduce the execution time of your program. Okay, and this will come in the time at the time of runtime. So when you install your interpreter, you get JIT interpreter and okay, ahead of time interpreter. Normal tasks like normal validations, normal execution, line by line execution is taken care by ahead of time interpreter, which is called JRE, and the just in time interpreter will take the just-in-time interpreter will take the loops or the repetitive tasks that is available in your code. That is available in your code. So when you install Java, you get the compiler and the interpreter. There are two interpreters that you get. One is the JRE, which is the ahead of time interpreter, and another is just-in-time interpreter. Just-in-time interpreter. So let us quickly install Java on this machine. I already have downloaded it. You can download it from the source. I can give you that endpoint. In the documentation, I'll mention from where you can download it. For now, I already have downloaded it for the class and I have kept it ready. So I'm going to my PC, this PC, in C drive. In Anil directory, I have the softwares and I have my JDK software. For Windows, I have downloaded. I have downloaded for Windows. My machine is 64-bit machine and I have downloaded my software for Windows. And you see it's a SC edition. You see there is a file description toggle, which is getting toggling there. So it's a Java TM stands for TM forum. It's a standard. Okay. So it's a TM forum certified platform SC standard edition binary. Standard edition binary. So I'll just double click on this. So which will ask me for a confirmation. You see that welcome to the installation of Java SC development kit. It's a development kit. I'm using JDK. I'm using a JDK. It's not JRE. It's a development kit. Okay. So this is the version it gets installed, what it says. Then click on next. Then it will say that in this directory, if you want to install in C program files JDK11, you can choose this. Or else if you want to change the directory, you can change that. If you want to change the directory, you can change that. Okay. But I don't want it to change now. I can install on the same directory. I'm selecting next. That's it. Just like installing any other softwares, normal softwares, right? It'll install the Java development kit. So now my installation is successful and I clicked on next. If you click on next, it will take you to the Oracle page. It will take you to the Oracle page, which will explain you about all this information. API documentation, hotspot virtual machine, all these details, you will get it. I don't want to read any of that. I'll just close it. Now, if I go to this PC, C drive, program files, my Java folder is created here. So inside this, if you see, I have two versions of Java. One is JDK 21 and another is JDK 11. So which means on the same machine, you can have multiple versions of Java up and running. You can run two versions of Java at the same time in any computer. Okay. You can have JDK 21. I have JDK 21 and I have JDK 11, which means multiple versions of Java can be installed on one single machine. If I go inside my JDK 11, you can see there is a bin directory. Inside this bin directory, you will have a compiler with a name called JavaC. So JavaC, this is the application or this is the compiler. This is the compiler program. Okay. And here you see there is a Java, right? This is the interpreter. JavaC is the compiler and Java is the interpreter. Now, where is JIT in that case? It is packaged as part of this Java interpreter. It is packaged as part of your Java interpreter itself, which you can see in a minute. So now, how do I know what is the version that is right now installed? It says that it is JDK 11, but I want my machine to tell that you have installed the right version of Java. You have right version of Java. So for that, now let me open command prompt. I opened a command prompt, and here I'm calling Java. I'm just typing Java. So I'm just typing Java dash version. So I'm asking my interpreter, I'm asking my interpreter to give me the version. Now let me see this. What happens? Now my machine is saying that, boss, Java is not recommended. So Java is not recognized. What do you mean by Java here? What do you mean by Java here? I don't know what is Java now. What is Java? But we have installed Java. We have installed Java. But my machine is saying, boss, I don't know what is Java. What do you mean by Java? It is not recognized as any command. It is not recognized as any command or a program, right? It is telling that. So now why it is telling that is you installed Java, but you didn't say to your system, you didn't say where is this Java installed on your computer? Where is the Java installed on your computer? So you have to set the path where your Java is installed on your computer, where your Java is installed on your computer. When you explain your computer like where is this Java installed, then your computer understands that this Java is a executable program. It's a executable program, so which is required to do some task, now we'll set the path for our Java. For that, what you have to do, you have to go to the directory, you have to go to the directory where you have installed Java. So if you see, I've installed Java on Windows, program files, Java, and I wanted to use JDK 11. Inside JDK 11, inside bin directory, I have my Java, my compiler and my interpreter available here. So just click on this and copy the path. Just copy the path. After that, you come to this PC. And don't select any of these drives. Don't select any of the drive. Just click on just do a right click on your laptop, and there will be an option called show more options, and you will find the properties option. Click on the properties options. You can find the advanced system settings. Okay, and click on the environment variable. So you will find two things: user variables and system variables. So what is user variables is, if your system has multiple users, basically multiple user accounts are created on your system, then user level variables you can do, or else system wide for any user system wide they can use it. Okay, it doesn't care about the user access, how many users you have on your laptop. Okay, I'm making it on the system. Just click on the path. There is a variable called path. Okay, so just select this and edit this and add a new line at the end and paste this and click on OK. That's it. We have set the path. So OK, click on OK. Now you go and execute it. Even though now you execute it, it will not identify that. There is a reason behind it, because you set the path. But this session, what I have opened, the command prompt, what I have opened, still will have the old path. So the existing session you have to kill. And you have to open a new command prompt. So now let me ask the version. So right now you see that it is C users. It is using my user account. C users PONNA. So I have not set the path under this user account. So again, go back to the systems, advanced settings, environment variables. There is a path over here for my user. Edit here, click on new and paste this. Okay. So both the places you set this here. I think it has been overridden. Click on OK. Just make sure that we have this path set properly. The path is available now. Click on OK. Apply. Java-version. So basically the path is not properly set there. It didn't save the path. So I didn't save the path. So it didn't execute properly. So now you see, I have set the path on my system variable. Now you have the version coming up. So now it says, this is the version that I have installed. And you see there are two interpreters. One is Java runtime environment with the version is this. There is a Java hotspot, which is the JIT compiler or JIT interpreter. Sorry, say JIT interpreter. Java hotspot 64-bit server is VM is a just-in-time compiler. You have both available. So within this Java itself, the just-in-time interpreter is stored. Similarly, you can get the version of your compiler also. Java C hyphen version. Sorry, caps small. Okay, when you're working with interpreter Java hyphen version. Okay, when you're working with compiler hyphen version. If I give hyphen version, that also works. But remember, when you're using Java and if you're using double dash, when you're using double dash, both will work. Java hyphen version or Java C hyphen version. Anything will work. Okay. Hyphen version also will work. Hyphen version also will work. Okay. So you see there is a runtime environment. So this is the AOT interpreter, and this is the GIT interpreter. This is the GIT interpreter. So now we have what we have done is we installed the JDK because we are going to develop the code in my machine. We are going to develop the code in my machine. Okay, so I have the compiler which will validate the rules and regulations of the program, and the interpreter will convert that instructions to some byte code. It will convert that information to a byte code which machine can understand it. Okay, so let us quickly write one small program. One small program. I'll create a new directory. I'll create a new directory. So the directory name I'll give it as practice. In this, I'll create a new file. I'll create a new text document. New test document. I'll open this document with a notepad. For now, I'm using a notepad. Okay. I'll write some code. Ignore now whatever I'm writing it. Okay. I'm writing some class demo. Okay. So just ignore what is this. We'll discuss about every detail of it. Public static void main. Think that we are writing our traditional program. String st. Okay, and here I'm trying to print our traditional program, introduction to the traditional program, which will say hello world. Hello world. So you see now, so we'll discuss about all these syntaxes and all. When you are writing any code, when you are writing any code in Java, it has to start with a some class and name of the class. Then you will have a name of the class, and there will be an opening brace and there is a closing brace. Whatever the code that you write, it should be written within the class. It should be written inside the class, and this class should have a main method, and that inside that you write the logic. Inside that you write the logic. So I'm saving this code. So now you look at, this is just a text document. This is just a text document. So I'm going to my command prompt, okay, or I'm opening the command prompt here directly. So just on the path, if you just execute cmd, it will directly open the command prompt on that particular path. So whatever the directory you see it here, right, you just need to override that with cmd command. If you override, and a command prompt will execute in that path directly, it will take you to the path. Okay, so now here I'll try to compile this code. The file name is new text document.txt. You see this, when I'm trying to run your source, when I'm trying to compile the code, okay, I have written the code in a text document and I'm passing that as an input to my Java compiler. So immediately your compiler is giving an error. What is that? Is it is saying invalid flag. Okay, this is not a write file. This is not a write file or format which I can read. Okay, and it is saying that some usage, how you can use a Java compiler. So Java C, some options, and the source file you have to pass. So right now, whatever the code we have written, it's in a text document. It is not, we have written the Java code inside it. But we cannot call this as a source code. We cannot call it as a source code, because so any Java code that you are writing, it should end with .java extension. So now I'll open this code and I'll save this same code this time, okay, as a demo.java. So right now it's a text document. What I'm asking to do is to convert this as a Java source file. So if you see it here, right now we have only text document and we don't have any source code now. When I save this, now you see you get a demo file which your system is identifying it as the Java source file. It's a Java source file. So it is always mandatory that your source code must end with .java extension. If you don't end that with the .java extension, your compiler cannot read it. Now okay, now my compiler can read my Java file or my Java code. So I'll use the Java C. I'll call the Java C compiler or Java compiler, and I'll pass this demo.java as an input to my compiler. As an input to my compiler. When I execute this, you see that it has successfully executed. If you don't get any output, which means the code is successfully executed. So my compiler has read the code in this demo.java, and it has validated all the rules of my programming. And now this compiler, within the same directory, it will create one .class file with the name of a class. Okay, so inside this, the class name what we have given, as demo. So always whatever the name that you give it here, okay, with this name, it will create a file with a .class extension. dot class extension. You see that demo dot class. The file can be anything. File can be test.java. For example, I'm deleting this now. The file can be anything. I'm deleting this. Now the file is demo.java. I'm trying to open this again. I'm trying to open that with, or let me try to open with VS Code. So instead of demo, here I'm giving test. Here I'm giving test and I'm saving it. So now you see the file name is demo, but the class name that I have given inside the source file is test. Okay. And I'm compiling this now again. Code is compiled. Ideally, if it is taking the file name, source code file name, then it should be demo.class. Then it should be demo.class, right? But if you see now, it is generating the .class for file test. It is generating the .class file for test, which means inside this demo.java, the class name what we have mentioned is test. The class name what we have mentioned is test. Okay. Name of the file doesn't matter. Whatever the classes that you are creating, whatever the classes that you are creating inside your program, that matters. So always the .class file or the binary code will be generated for the classes that you're writing inside a program, that you are writing inside the program. So now I'll try to open this code. So I'll use a notepad. I'll use a notepad. You see this? I don't understand what is this. Okay, it has some English, some point somewhere it has some English and all, right? It has some English and all. But there are some question marks, XYZ things which I cannot understand. Which I cannot understand. Basically, what is the meaning of all these question marks? We don't know. We really don't know. So which means this is not in a human readable format. Human readable format. We didn't write a code like line number table. Okay. So that this L, this question mark, all this. So now, now if you see the code what we have written is this. The code what we have written is this. And the interpreter, so your compiler has generated this .class file. So the binary code will be always, it's a class file. It's a class file. It will end with .class. This is called byte code or binary code. So when I open this, you see that I can read this properly. Demo class, public static void main, system.out.println something, which is written in English. Basically, I've written everything in English. I don't know the meaning now, but but I have written this in English. But when I go to the test class, I don't know what it is generated. I didn't write the source file. I didn't write in it. I didn't write v code something. It has added something. So it converts this file. So it converts the source code to some intermediate file. Okay. So now I can call my interpreter. I can't read this, but my interpreter can read this. So when I'm calling my interpreter, which is Java, which is allocated in the same path, so I don't need to set the path for interpreter. Once you set the path for compiler and interpreter, both will be set. Okay. So the class name I have to pass. The class name I have to pass. I shouldn't pass this dot class extension. I should not pass this dot class extension. If you pass this dot class extension, it will give an error. It will give error. It says like, what is this test dot class? I didn't find the main method inside it. Okay, class not found exception. Okay, I didn't class not found exception. It is saying I didn't find any class with the name called test dot class. So what you have to do, without extension you have to pass, and your interpreter knows that the extension of the file is dot class. The extension of the file is dot class. Now you see, when I run this, I have an output of the code. Whatever the code that I have written inside it, it is executing. Right? So I'll make a small mistake in this. Okay. So instead of println, I'll just print L. Some spelling mistake I have done. Right? Now I modified the code. So if I modify the code, when there is a code modification, always you have to recompile the code. You have to recompile the code. So now there is a modification that I have made, and I'm trying to compile my code now. So now I'm asking my compiler to, okay, validate the rules of the program. You see now, immediately it said, boss, I don't know what you mean by printel here. I don't know what is the meaning. What is the symbol you mean by the method printel here? What is the meaning of printel here? I really don't know. It is saying that because it is validating the rules now. It is validating the rules. Basically, now the grammatical mistakes it has identified. The grammatical mistakes it has identified. This is what I mean by grammatical mistakes. It should be println. Fine. Now I'm changing the syntax. This time I'm modifying the syntax and trying to compile it. Trying to compile it. You see that, okay? There is a semicolon expected at the end. It says there is a problem at the syntax. There is a problem on the syntax. You didn't end the line with semicolon. Okay? Your interpreter will validate all the rules. Your compiler will validate all the rules. Okay? So I'll stop it here. I have taken 2 minutes extra of your time. If any questions that you have, guys, please ask. Any questions? We'll discuss this. What is this? We'll definitely discuss the main method. When we are, what is the meaning of public? We'll go through all the fundamentals of it. I'll explain you in the upcoming classes while writing public static in brackets. We also write args. You can write args, you can write st, anything you can write. Why, how it is allowing in upcoming classes, you will understand that. You can put anything there, not just st, not args. You can keep your name also, that it works. We'll discuss that. Definitely we'll discuss the main method syntaxes. What is that args? What is that st? Everything we'll discuss. For now, I just wanted to explain how the interpreter behaves, what is the duty of an interpreter, what is the duty of an compiler. So assuming there are no questions, then we will wind up the session today and we'll meet again in tomorrow's session.